Welcome to Disgruntled Wargamer. I'm Tom, and today I'm going to talk about setting up a table for Warmachine games. Anyone who's been tuned into my posts, videos, and whatever knows I'm a big proponent of terrain-heavy tables, even in a tournament setting. I came up with Scenic Steamroller during COVID when we couldn't go out and play, and Dessa and I were playing narrative games at the house. I posted a doc, it was shared, and some people also enjoyed that version of the game. I'd like to think that it was partially inspiration for the 2024 Steamroller packet, which now has flags that move to a terrain element to make it an objective. I never received any confirmation that anyone in the actual development side even heard about it though, so who knows? I do know that I've had a partial influence on our local group, or at least I did before I had to dedicate time to more things. If the Bernie-crats ever rise to power in the USA, I'll look forward to those 30-hour work weeks. Not kidding. One influence I can point to is an effort to bring more interesting tables to the Steamroller tournament. Our organizer, Shretz, in our local gaming group, has his work cut out for him. Balancing attractive tables with meaningful terrain against the backdrop of clean-cut Steamroller packet and the competitive nature of our more hardcore players would challenge anyone, and in my opinion, I think he does a good job. If you're ever in Tucson, Arizona, check out one of the Steamrollers here, held monthly, third Saturday of the month, usually at Isle of Games. So how do you get good tables? Well, you can look to the Steamroller packet for guidance, but I think that oversimplifies things. Take a look here. This is a table with 8 pieces of terrain and about the recommended size. Now, I made this video segment a long time ago, so this was before scatter terrain. It's still relevant, though. And although that's okay for Steamroller, because in general it doesn't interfere with the objectives, I'd like to point out that playing on some more of the narrative tables set up in the battleground section of the app is actually amazing. We have forests, walls, buildings, craters right next to them, scatter terrain in the form of boxes, lots of ways to hide, duck, and cover, and it makes the game very interesting. If you shrink this down, it clearly covers more area than the 8 pieces, and may actually cover more area than the 12 pieces if you follow that Steamroller packet recommendation. But it all depends on the size of the terrain you use. Now, what I prefer to do is to just cut the table into fourths and fill one quadrant completely full of terrain. This quadrant consists mostly of easily passable terrain, like open terrain, like hills, or difficult terrain like craters, rubble, water, and forests. The forests block line of sight. Alternatively, grasslands would be good here, or even quicksand for the difficult terrain. I like to limit obstructions to a fourth of this quarter so they can't clog the table too much. If I use more than an eighth of the table in obstructions, I do like to make them climbable so that other models still have ground on which they can stand. I also like to organize it so I can visualize how much line of sight blocking terrain is on the table, keeping it to less than half of the quarter. I like to have a line of sight blocking to limit long charge ranges and extended ranged attacks, but I also like to have areas where long charges and gunplay are viable, just not dominating the table. The tank traps here provide cover, but are considered scatter terrain, and there is a barbed wire strip which just deals a point of damage to models walking through it. The rules for barbed wire aren't codified, and we usually default to this, but you could use the text of razor wire, which is a spell, and if you want, you can look up other variations on the internet. There are many ways to place the terrain, but I do like to do a couple of things. I like to start with the obstructions first. They're the most complicated pieces, and they can ruin a game if they're too close together. However, you can remedy this by having some of them be destructible. In fact, I recommend making your obstructions destroyable so players can remove them from the table as needed if equipped. Now, I don't like how some of the rules interact with this terrain. I'd like if armor piercing applied, and I really dislike the out of action rule on the watchtower and bunker. If I were to modify the bunker and watchtower, it would be to increase the armor on the bunker up to 20, drop the HP down to 40, and on the watchtower, I'd drop the HP down to 30, keeping the armor at 18. Removing the out of action rule would encourage people to wreck these things, and as far as other obstructions go, I like to use 18 for wooden structures, 20 for stone or metal, 30 boxes for wooden, and 40 for stone or metal. Of course, there's room for weaker structures, And you can just drop the HP if you want. You don't want to go smaller than 24 HP though, because you want at least the effort of killing a light warjack to go into wrecking something substantial. Now, despite the loud dissent on the internet, I really appreciate the interplay that the bunkers and watchtowers can provide. And with a little tweaking, I think they can make the game exciting. Yeah, it's frustrating when someone camps a tower and you have to handle them, but there are ways to do it. I think that this type of tactical thinking is missing from most steamroller games, and I look forward to seeing terrain like this become more than just a thing that gets ignored or pushed to the table edge. You should be able to at least contest in it. You gotta have some reason to engage with it, and it probably should take a couple of heavies to defeat. That's my 2 cents on that, as unpopular as it is. Now, with the terrain I've selected for this table, I'm thinking that the old power converter can hang out in the wooded section of the table, and this creates a large area with lots of line of sight blocking and some rough terrain. There are definite charge lanes here which can be exploited by the players. The forests offer a little protection from ambush, and the watchtowers form a line. It's possible for a player going second to take both of the towers, which seems unfair, but the walls help offset that with some easy cover for the opposite side. I try to space obstructions and obstacles out so they don't jam up 120mm bases, and I like to balance out shooting advantages with items like cover or concealment to offset it just a little bit. One of the things I like about the hills and forests is that you can place other terrain pieces inside them. So you can have a house on a hill, a wall on a hill, or things inside forests. Now this hill with a wall is actually a trap. It's perfect for an army leader to hide behind, but it's also just inside the 12-inch kill box, so using the wall for too many turns would give an opponent 2 points during a match. I'm actually really satisfied with this table. It has some good defendable areas, some areas which can be exploited for ranged or charge attacks. It has a good hazard, and some decisions that need to be made during the start of the game. Really important to me is that it tells a story. This is an outpost on the edge of the Forgotten Woods. Inside the dense forest, there's a derelict Convergence of Cirrus power generator, but the soldiers occupying the outpost only know that there are strange noises and lights coming from the trees. So they set up barricades in hopes of repelling whatever lurks in the dark forest. The rubble was a recent loss. Mismanaged explosives destabilized and accidentally caused the building to explode. Will the defenders of the border outpost be able to repel attackers? That's all I have for today. Join me next time, and Dessa and I will play a game on this table. Until then, may your tables look amazing and your games be fun.